I'd like to talk about a topic that I discussed previously, but is still not getting enough press because I see many people continue to exploit misinformation on this topic. And that is the very important distinction between a neurotrophic agent or strategy and a nootropic agent or strategy. So these are things that improve brain function, memory, creativity, and but often misconstrued to mean it improves brain health. So let's talk about neurotrophics first. So neurotrophics that are either factors, products, or strategies that actually improve brain health. That is something that increases growth hormones, trophic hormones in the brain like brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, causing proliferation of brain cells and the synaptic richness, that is the interconnected richness between brain cells. Also reduce atrophy of important structures like the hippocampus, that's the part of the brain that transacts near-term memory into long-term memory, and cerebral atrophy or preserves the integrity and the health of the cerebral hemispheres. Neurotrophics prevent the decline of dementia. They actually preserve brain health. So these are very important strategies that actually prevent cognitive decline and dementia. Those are neurotrophic strategies. These are changes that you can see, for instance, on a brain MRI or CT scan. So if something truly works, for instance, it will block progressive shrinkage or atrophy of the hippocampus and atrophy of the cerebral hemispheres. A nootropic agent, in contrast, is something that improves memory, data acquisition, data recall, idea synthesis, creativity for a few hours, then it's gone. It's a transient effect. It could be something called citicoline, or huperzine, or vinpocetine, or paracetam, or aniracetam, or Bacopa monnieri. There's numerous things like this that do indeed, many of them have indeed been shown to improve various measures of cognitive function, but they don't materially change brain anatomy or physiology. A good example is caffeine. When you drink a cup of coffee or two, are you more alert? Is your concentration a little bit better? Yes, there's no question about that. But after a few hours, is your brain actually healthier? No, of course not. You haven't increased those trophic factors, growth factors. You haven't reversed hippocampal atrophy or cerebral atrophy. You haven't reduced such things as microbial infestation of the brain by microbes like Porphyromonas gingivalis and Fusobacterium nucleatum from the mouth, nor Candida infestation, which is very common in dementia, for instance. You haven't reversed excessive quantities of lead or mercury in your brain, heavy metals. So nootropics are not harmful in general. There are some that are harmful, but in general are not harmful, but they are not beneficial in brain health. They just make you a little bit more effective, memory, creativity, data synthesis for a few hours, and then the effect is gone. Why is this a problem? I like to use nootropics. One of my favorites, for instance, is vinpocetine. 30 milligrams of vinpocetine, very benign. It improves your ability to work, for instance. If you're, let's say, writing something or memorizing something, it makes you a little bit more effective in doing so for a few hours. No harm done. Here's the problem. There are people who are selling things, making claims, or inferring that if you take something that has a nootropic and thereby transient effect, it will translate into a neurotrophic effect and protect you from dementia, cognitive impairment, etc. Of course, they do not. And yet a lot of money is being charged, a lot of money is being made by hawking these nootropics and trying to persuade you that you're going to be somehow protected from dementia. But think about that. A nootropic does not increase trophic hormones, does not increase brain cell number nor synaptic richness, interconnectedness, does not reduce the burden of heavy metals, does not reduce the burden of microbes that are known to infest the brain in dementia and other forms of neurocognitive impairment, those species I mentioned, but also fungal infestation, doesn't reduce the burden of heavy metals. So what is truly neurotrophic that actually provides benefit? Well, that's a short list, but slowly growing. So we know that exercise and physical activity is important in preserving especially hippocampal volume. We know that omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA at higher dose, so I tend to advocate 3,600 milligrams or more of total EPA and DHA. And by the way, anybody who's been misled by their doctor to take an EPA alone product needs to take fish oil to get the DHA to protect their brain. That's how silly the pharmaceutical solutions for the omega-3s are. And higher doses required, because remember, when anything is a component of food, you typically require greater quantities as opposed to, say, micronutrients. Vitamin D is important because it's one of the factors that reduces insulin resistance and inflammation. Other strategies to reduce inflammation and insulin resistance, like magnesium, that's absent from modern life, largely absent. Omega-3 fatty acids, yes. Iodine, because it determines thyroid status. And, of course, diet. We follow a diet that does not allow a rise in blood glucose, does not contain gliadin. People say gluten, because we know that gluten impairs brain function, and there is also a form of dementia unique to gluten. So we avoid that also. We also address SIBO and endotoxemia, or at least colonic dysbiosis. Recall that endotoxemia is the process in which microbes in the gastrointestinal tract, especially if they infest the small intestine, the very permeable small intestine, live and die rapidly, trillions of them. When they die, they release their toxic compounds into the bloodstream. That's called endotoxemia. That is a huge, powerful, and largely underappreciated driver of brain disability, of a deterioration in brain health, because it leads to brain atrophy, it leads to impaired cognition, leads to insulin resistance and inflammation. So know that especially SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and endotoxemia, major drivers of cognitive impairment. So be aware of this distinction. Nootropics, have fun with them if you want to, but don't be fooled into thinking that your brain is healthier. If you want a healthier brain, you've got to go farther. Omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, other efforts to reduce insulin resistance and inflammation, address endotoxemia, and the diet we follow avoids protein glycation, irreversible glucose modification of neuronal and glial, that is brain cell and supportive cells, glycation, that mucks up your brain. So nootropics do not reverse beta amyloid plaque. They don't reverse phosphorylated tau. They don't reverse microbial infestations of your brain. They don't reverse burdens of heavy metal in your brain. It does not reverse or prevent glycation. Does not prevent or reverse endotoxemia. So what do? You can appreciate. They are of limited usefulness. So you can play with them, use them, enjoy them for whatever purpose, like creativity or writing or creating. But do not believe, despite what all the marketers tell you, it does not improve brain health. That is something entirely distinct and separate.